Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar in this crazy world we're living in, at least today as we're recording this in mid-March. I'm with the one and only Joe V. McMahan. He is, I was so happy to stumble across Joe and get turned on to his music, and I would really encourage you, if you remotely like blues music and like soul, this man will crush your heart, man. He can play guitar with incredible passion, and on top of that, he could shred the crap out of a guitar as well. I mean, it was just pretty mind-blowing, and he's a real talented guy. I'm glad we got to connect. Quick announcement: I want to thank our good friend Joe Pizzapia. We really appreciate for connecting us. Thanks, Joe, who's another monster player. And then make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe to check out the show, subscribe to the audio and video. And Carlos Santana, Joe Walsh, I'd love to have those guys on the show. If you can connect me, right on, please do that. All right, Joe V. McMahan. This guy is going to be a great interview. He's super interesting, awesome dude. Born in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and then moved to New Haven, Missouri when he was 12. I was thinking New Haven, Connecticut when I first saw that, and I said New Haven, Missouri. When he was 12, he started playing guitar. He then wound up moving back to Arkansas with his dad when his parents split, and he developed an interest in the blues. After high school, he moved to Shreveport, Louisiana, where he worked as a groom and rider at a track, which is, we'll talk about that. That's really interesting. And he started playing at local clubs, went to Berkeley for a year, then moved to Nashville, got a touring gig with Jo-El Sonnier. Is that Sonnier?
Sonnier, yeah.
Sonnier. He eventually moved back to Louisiana to work with other Louisiana legends like Dickie Landry, Sonny Landreth, and others. In '99, he began recording his own instrumental music and producing records, and he's a hell of a producer. He won a Dove Award, and that's from the Gospel Music Association, for producing the best traditional gospel LP album. He's toured as a guitarist and multi-instrumentalist with artists like Ann Womack, Katie Lang. Is that where you met Joe?
Well, no, I met him before that, but that's how I ended up working with Katie.
Oh, through Joe. Okay.
Yeah.
Webb Wilder, who was on this show, Radney Foster, and others. In 2011, he and Melissa Mathis teamed up in a band called Luella and the Sun. Unfortunately, the band is not around anymore, but let me tell you, I'm going to say the name of the band again. It's Luella and the Sun. I would highly encourage you to look up the band on YouTube and just sit there with your jaw hitting the freaking table as you listen to Joe play. And they also have only 2 songs, but they're both great. It's a 2-song EP, 2 singles they released, and it's wherever music is streamed. Great stuff. And both of those songs were featured in major television and movies. In 2000, now this is why I really like the dude. In 2013, he lost his home and studio to a fire and was forced to rebuild. No, not because he had a fire, because he rebuilt. That's why I like him. He's currently working on writing for his own upcoming recordings. He's a pretty active producer in town, and he's producing and engineering, and he's touring with artists like Shelby Lynn, Shannon McNally, Kevin Gordon, and he does his own personal shows around Nashville. Joe, thanks so much for your time, and I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I'm so happy to connect with you, man.
Me too. What a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Okay, so if you're comfortable answering this one, you moved around a lot as a kid. And
yeah, I did.
Yeah, I got to believe that was fairly stressful because, who has coping skills for that as a kid,
Well, it's not, I didn't know any different, so it was just normal,
But you feel that later is when I had a shitty childhood too, but I didn't know it was shitty until later. Then you realize, oh man, I'm pretty fucked up, and it's because of this.
Yeah, it made me, my first 3 years of school were moving every couple months or few months, so I had to make new friends a lot. So it kind of, it may have added to my introspectiveness.
Yeah. No, I get that. I think anybody who's had challenges early on tends to be introspective, but the problem is some people can be introspective and use that information like, okay, let me get a game plan here to get some of the stuff fixed. And other people are introspective and they get lost in it,
Yeah.
It's a tough call. How does that impact you, if at all, musically?
The moving around part, I'm not really sure. how it did, other than, my parents trained thoroughbred racehorses. So we were on the backside of the track a lot, and around a lot of people that walked horses and groomed horses and took care of the animals. And I have memories of hearing, Marvin Gaye and Al Green, when I was a tiny kid, because that was the soundtrack back there.
Yeah.
And I know that influenced me.
Yeah. Very cool. How did they get into, that's not a business. That's a lifestyle as in addition to being a business. How did they get into that?
Well, my dad was from Hot Springs, Arkansas, and they have a racetrack there, and have had for a long time. And he was fascinated with animals and horses from a young age, and just somehow in his teen years, his older brother was already kind of playing with the horses, so he just kind of, the gate opened, and he, pun intended, and he walked through it, and it's very natural for him. He was a very natural horseman,
Yeah. That's not an easy life at all, I would imagine. It seems like a tough job, no?
I guess, the traveling part makes it particularly tough, and the never a day off part makes it tough, because
they race
need to be taken care of on a daily basis,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that shape your work ethic maybe?
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Are you good with balancing things? Because I'm not. I struggle with that.
I struggle with it, and because I struggle with it, I'm okay at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I actually am aware of it and conscious of it, and I try.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, being a musician and making records and playing guitar, it's all as demanding as you want to make it. And if you make time to do other things, it can be all consuming for sure.
Yeah. For sure, man. Oh, okay. So, you lived in Hot Springs and New Haven, Missouri, and then you moved to Shreveport. I was curious, what prompted that move to Shreveport?
Well, that's where my dad went. He got a job training for a guy that had a bunch of horses there. And so he went there actually a year before I did. And then when I got out of high school, I went down and worked for him. And I did not do any riding. I was just a groom. So I would work. I had my little 3 or 4 horses that I took care of, and that was my job. But at the same time, I was going to music stores and meeting people. I was like 18, I was going to music stores and meeting other musicians and local people in Shreveport. And then pretty soon I was in a band. And so I'm playing in clubs, because the drinking age was 18. And I'm playing in clubs, and I'm still got to be at the track at 6 a.m. to take care of the horses. Oh, and it was an interesting time. It was actually really fun.
Yeah.
Playing your first gigs. I mean,
yeah,
that's going to be fun no matter what,
Amazing what you could do when you're 18, and not even think about it and get up at 6 and be at work. Try to do that today after a night of partying and drinking and whatever, man.
No doubt.
Wouldn't work well for me anyway, for sure. Okay. So how'd you first get started in what you'd call the music business? What was your first break?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess when I got on the tour bus with Jo-El Sonnier, I felt like I was okay. I'm in the music business.
Yeah.
Before that, I was in cover bands and playing here and there, and I was playing with people that were playing originals music too, but boy, when you get on a bus and you get up and you're playing rodeos and festivals, and it was like a big jump,
Yeah, it is a big jump.
Yeah.
And he was pretty big back then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He was all, how did you, okay, let's talk about a few of these guys that you worked with. I just said people that you worked with, and how did you connect with these guys, and and tell me a funny or interesting story. Let's start with Jo-El.
Yeah. Oh, Jo-El. It's funny because the guitar player with Jo-El before me was a guy named John Jackson, who, if you haven't interviewed him, you maybe should.
He's in New York.
He's in Nashville.
Oh,
he played with Bob Dylan for 6 years or 7 years or something.
Okay.
And but he got the Dylan gig because Dylan saw him with Jo-El.
That's wild.
they played at the Lone Star Roadhouse or Lone Star, whatever it was, in New York.
Yeah.
And Bob came out, and so while this is all happening, my friend David Egan was the key piano player, and I hope John doesn't mind me saying this, but Egan had said, "Man, this thing is tense. I'm not sure." There was trouble brewing between John and the road manager and stuff, and my friend David Egan said, "You might want to get a copy of these records and start listening to them." You know.
Oh, because he could see that the thing was going.
He could see
him and John were going to split.
Thing, and it may not last forever. And so I was living in Dallas at the time, playing in a cover band and teaching a lot of guitar lessons. And you know, 9 o'clock at night, I'd sit down and learn another Jo-El song, you know, just for fun. You know? Plus, I wanted to kind of get inside the psyche of what was going on in what I considered to be quality music in Nashville.
Right.
And so I started learning these songs. And then one night I got home at like 1 a.m. and I had like 20 voicemail messages from David Egan. He goes, "Man, we left Nashville at midnight without a guitar player. We're on our way to Jacksonville, Texas." They're on their way to do a show in Jacksonville, Texas without a guitar player. Jacksonville, Texas was only 2 hours from me in Dallas.
Oh, wow. So
here we go. The next day I get a ride to Jacksonville, Texas, throw my Marshall on a hay wagon and play a rodeo with no rehearsal, you know.
How did it go?
I think it went well. I mean, everybody was happy. You know, I mean, of course, they were happy that they have a guitar player at all.
Sure.
And I mean, I have very little memory of the actual gig itself. You know, it's all just like a blur. And then I got on the bus, and they said, "Here's your bunk." And the next day, we went and played in Philadelphia, Mississippi, and we went and played somewhere else. Then we came to Nashville, and anyway, so then I ended up doing that for 4 years.
Any funny stories from that? Or
more than we have time for.
Right on, man.
Jo-El is like one of the most beautiful characters I've ever known, and an intense musician, like really intense. And I just learned so much working with him, and I'm very thankful for that time period.
That's cool. That must have been a great feeling when you come home and you see all those messages too. That's got to be like, yes.
Well, it was that, and it was anxiety and everything involved. You know, it's like, holy shit, I've actually got to play these songs now with people. You know, like I didn't even know the guys in the band or the keyboard player, and you know what I mean. Like,
yeah,
I was 23, I think. You know, yeah.
You all that work, all you know, and this is everything that works well in this business. And I don't know, maybe I've had blinders on. Maybe it's life in general. That. It's so organic. Like you were practicing that stuff.
Yeah. I
mean, if you hadn't have been practicing that, maybe you wouldn't have been on the road with them for 4 years, you know?
Probably not. No, probably not.
And so it just blows my mind how, you know, like when you're supposed to be doing something, the universe just lines up and everything sort of works, man.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's really cool to hear this so many
times. It works
times.
better if you're thinking positive about it, because if I wasn't thinking positive about it, I would not have worked on the songs as hard as I did. You know?
Yeah. It's funny. I read something. I always try to, not always, but I try to read a lot of self-help stuff. You know, if it's interesting, right? I always pay attention to it. And I saw something the other day, and I learned something. They talked about celebrating the victories. They said, you know, like I was always the kind of person that, like, if something good would happen, I'd be like, okay, you know, great, next thing now. And because I always, I don't want to sit and gloat, or I don't want to like stroke I'm not ego driven, and I didn't want to, you know, all those reasons, you know, what's still tomorrow. And I read this thing that said, you need to create momentum in your life to truly have to launch that plane and take it high, right? And it said one of the things that you need to do to get that momentum up is to celebrate these little victories. And they said the more little celebrations you're having, it's like what you just said. You're putting the more, you know, you're putting the positive stuff out there. You're putting that energy out there, and and I was like, man, that is really. And then if you're not doing it, you're dampening the momentum. Actually, you're not like forging ahead. You're actually impeding yourself.
Yeah.
And I thought that
well,
was,
you're closing the door before it ever opens, whereas if you assume the door is going to open and you prepare for it,
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? So now anytime I have a little victory, I'll just allow myself happiness for, it's pat myself on the back in a, hey man, you worked, not in a like, oh, you're shitting them stink way, but in a, like, hey man, I'm happy for me that this happened kind of thing,
Yeah.
And
I mean, and it sort of requires being free of ego to do exactly that. Because if you're caught up in ego, you might say, it wasn't that great, but whatever, you might disregard the victory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you get caught up in
the bar. The bars, your bar is not high enough, or that's all bullshit. Yeah, exactly. You're 100% right, man. And since I did that, I feel so much better. Like just in general, like not just like a work or whatever, but it's nice to pat yourself on the back and say, hey man, like, you worked hard. Good. Glad this worked out, go smoke a cigar for a half hour out back, or, whatever, read a book,
have some fun.
Yeah. Right. Have some fun. That's not illegal. Yeah. Right. But when when you tend to be like A type sort of and driven, fun for me anyway is out external. It's like over there that when I get to the end, I'll get it. The end is every day, man. The end's going to be, there's nothing there at the end. So why wait?
Yeah. Exactly.
I was really happy I read that, man.
Yeah.
Sonny Landreth, another New Orleans legend. How'd you hook up with Sonny?
Well, I've known Sonny and been around him, a bunch over the years. But I went down a couple of years ago to Louisiana to make a record with a guy named Josh Hyde, who's a Louisiana guy. There's a great studio down there that I've worked at multiple times. And Sonny played on the record, so he came over, and I got to work with him in the studio, which was really, it took my admiration for him up another level.
He's even better in person.
Yeah, just standing 2 feet from him and watching him do his thing, and in the creative process, trying to come up with a part. And here's a guy that not only invented a whole thing, a whole way of playing guitar, he is a master of it. You know what I mean? Like he is like the highest level of a thing he invented. It's really a trip, And of course, he's just the most gentle, nice, sweet guy.
Yeah, yeah. Most of the people that are like, I think this myth of, as people get successful, they get arrogant. I have not found that to be true at all. I found it.
It's almost the opposite, isn't it?
Quite the opposite. Yeah. I mean, what I've noticed is if people have not, there's the one odd person, whether it's in music or business, that gets through that didn't work for it. It was handed to them somehow. Those people, if there's arrogant people, it tends to be them.
Yeah.
But man, when you've, groomed horses for a living and then like worked your way, you're not likely, to be arrogant, man. Cause it's,
I'm appreciative of being,
yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
And talk about KD. How'd you hook up with her?
Well, that was through Joe Pisapia.
All right. You said that.
And he had produced a record for her, and he was the touring guitar player. And then the summer of 2012, he got sick and had to have some surgery and was out of commission for a while. And so I ended up filling in for him for, I don't know, 30 dates or something. And it was a great experience. She's Katie's coolest,
I've had two of her players on, Joe and somebody else, and they both spoke so highly, man.
Yeah.
Really highly of her.
Yeah.
And I think, what? I think Joe talked about that surgery he had. It was pretty serious, if I remember correctly, and he was okay. Or,
It was real serious, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I read an article where you mentioned that growing up in the Deep South, as you did, you got exposed to a fair amount of racism. Again, if you're comfortable, what kind of things did you either hear or see, and how did that impact you at the time and then moving forward?
Well, it's obviously a delicate topic, and I could talk about it for the whole rest of the interview, really. But, growing up in the South, I don't feel like, I feel like a lot of people in my position, being a white male that have experienced that stuff, don't really want to talk about it. I don't really hear people talking about it. So I feel like that's why I mentioned it in that other interview that you went across. But it's a thing, you know, when you have people that you love that are saying really negative things about people that they've never met.
Yeah.
As a child, you know, you have to grapple with that, and you have to struggle with, like, do I want to be that way, or do I see it differently than these people see it? And, you know, fortunately, I think for me, I grew up on the backside of the racetrack. My first public school experience was East St. Louis. So I immediately bonded, you know, and I think we're talking in the South, we're talking about a specific type of racism, which is African American.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and I just, from a young age, I just felt a kinship with people in that culture. You know? And then growing up and becoming my own person, I just more and more identified with music coming from that world, you know, and still do.
You're lucky that that's how you know, I credit to you, man. But yeah, I think it's who you grow up with. But yeah, that's it. That's got to be tough if you've got that vibe around you, and then, you know, you're trying to, like, you know, figure it out.
It's really just an antiquated cultural thing.
Yes, very much.
You know, and a lot of people don't want to let go of it for whatever reason. And, you know, you could say that it's an ego thing. You could say that people, when you look at another person that is from a particular group or tribe, and you instantly, your mind tells you that they are inferior, then you're telling yourself that you are superior.
You're better. Yeah. It's absolutely.
And it's like this instant ego boost, you know, and it's bullshit, of course.
Well, especially if you're getting an ego boost off of someone else's perceived weakness in the first place. That's like, you know, as opposed to your own strength, you know? Yeah. You know who shared something similar? I think, if I remember correctly, do you know Will Kimbrough?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you do. Yeah. I think he shared something similar to that.
Wow.
So he grew up in the very,
he grew up in Mobile.
Yeah, he had a lot of the same experiences. Yeah, man. Well, good for you for making your own mind up, man.
Well, I mean, good, you know, lucky for me, I wasn't closed off to hearing a lot of great music or making a lot of great friends, you know, and you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally. Dude, I grew up in the Bronx. It was the same, probably, when the demographics of where you went to school is when I went to school in the Bronx. So it was, you know, I know exactly, that was never an issue for me anyway, you know, as long as, like, so I totally understand that, man. Luella and the Son, man, let's talk about that. That was a big part of your musical efforts. The studio that you guys did all your work in, your studio, got burned down. And I know the band broke up. So talk about any parts of that you'd like to share. But most importantly, if you could talk about what happened with the studio and how's things going now.
Well, we can start with the studio part. I had this studio. I moved into this house in 2006 and immediately started making records, because I was in another place making records before that. So I already had work lined up. I started making records here. And in 2013, Luella and the Son was already, in fact, we were kind of at our apex in a way. Everything was lined up, and we had all the business stuff was lining up, and the next year was going to be really good for us. But in 2013, I was working on a record. I had just finished mixing a record that Kenny Vaughn was producing.
I had him on the show. Yeah. I had him
and they had come by and picked up the mixes and written me a check. I put the check on the console, and then I went to lunch, and I had to be back in like an hour because I had a rehearsal. And when I came back, I couldn't even get down my street, and there was fire trucks and ambulances, and I was like, what's going on? I parked at the end of the street and got out and looked, and then I saw some firemen carrying a hose, and then I realized that's my yard, you know, and I started just running in slow motion, you know, and I got down and there was a vintage Fender Coronado in my yard and a rack of Ampex mic frees on my porch laying on their side. And it was so surreal and bizarre. And when I finally walked into the studio, there was, 3 inches of pieces of drywall and fire extinguisher crap and stuff and I just looked around the room and I didn't know what to mourn, things that were expensive or the harnesses that I had hand soldered and made and that were all melted and dripping down, and it took me about a minute to just throw my hands in the air and go, fuck it. Yeah. Because there's just no other. It's so overwhelming. That's kind of all I could do,
Man, that's probably the healthiest thing you could do, to be honest with you.
Well, it seemed like the only thing I could do. Time.
How did the fire start? Do they know?
Well, originally they thought it was from a power strip. And I don't know how they do this, but they do. But they came in and they got down in the ashes and they scraped around and they pulled up this burned, crispy piece of wire. And they said, that's your power strip. And they put it in a Ziploc bag and they mailed it off to a guy in Michigan. And he called me up like 6 weeks later and was like, it wasn't the power strip. Oh. Meanwhile, we had sold everything in the control room to a guy for salvage. And a month later or something after that, he called me up and he said, man, I think it was your Hammond organ because I took it apart and got inside the power supply. And he said that's what it looked like to him. So the ultimate answer is we really don't know.
Yeah.
But I'd heard about another studio in Los Angeles that burned because of a Wurlitzer piano that was plugged in but not on. And that's the same thing with my Hammond organ. It's from the late 40s. It was plugged in, probably had the original cord on it.
Sure.
And it's plugged in but not on. So yeah. I don't know.
Man, I'm sorry. That's a tough thing. Was it insured, any of that stuff, or was just?
I was insured, yeah.
Thank God for that, man.
Not every piece of gear was insured, and not all the prices were up to date, but it was enough to where I could rebuild.
Thank goodness, man. Wow, that's a messed up thing. It's one of those things, like if you've had a rough life and then that happens, just like, oh, that's another one. It's like it adds it on, like, okay, what's next? Yeah.
Things weren't that rough before that, but that was a real experience. And then you spend like a year, like waking up at 3 a.m. going, light fixture for the hallway, like getting on eBay, just bizarre. You can't stop your brain from, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Trying to put it all back together. Wow. So your studio's, is it finished now?
Oh yeah. Within a year I was back up and running and making records.
That's great. Yeah. And again, to the extent you're comfortable, Luella, the band broke up. There won't be anything else coming out of there. Are you working on something maybe that'll sort of resemble that?
It'll sort of resemble that, Luella has such a dynamic energy as a singer that I can't really do that.
Yeah.
So I have to do something slightly different, but that's okay because I don't want to be stuck in a particular thing anyway.
Sure, man. There was
that band, Adams Bednarik was the bass player, John Radford was the drummer, and the three of us, along with a couple other people, had been doing instrumental music just for fun, getting together and writing and recording. And then I had met up with Luella or Melissa Mathis. I'd met up with her once or twice and tried to write. And then one day I said, why don't you just come over and jam? Why don't we just get together and just play some old gospel songs or something? So she came over one night and it was almost instant, where it was like the four of us played together, and it was that chemistry thing where the sum is greater than the parts.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many times I've ever experienced it on that level,
Really? Okay.
Where it was just like, fuck,
fantastic. I mean, you guys were all fantastic together, and how the bass player and drummer played is, I have not heard how. That's not normally how a bass and drummer play. Even like it was like they were playing to serve so much to serve that music. It was incredible, man.
But we worked hard on those arrangements, and we had a pretty good focus about what we were doing, and everybody's influences came together and just really made sense,
Yeah.
And when you only have one guitar, bass, and drums in this particular time period, you have to work hard on your arrangements.
Yeah.
You don't have different instruments popping up here and there. You have to really work hard at like economy, and the most punch for the small amount of sounds, and we took it seriously, obviously, I guess. Well,
man, I would look forward to anything else you put out because it was great. I mean, just really, really I listened to it like 5 or 6 times each song. In fact, when I was out in the car on the way to the gym, I listened to it after I heard it here. I was like, oh my God, it's really fantastic. I'll just say the name. It's Luella and the Sun. Everybody, please check that out. It's
there's a lot of YouTube stuff out there. It's kind of fun to go down a rabbit hole every once in a while,
There's that one video you did, even the vibe. That's why I said I knew I'd like you, because the vibe of that video where you went into your burned out studio.
It's hard to watch.
But I said, man, this guy took a lot of balls to go in there and do that. I knew that probably was not easy. Well,
it was not my idea. It was Luella's idea. And because it was shortly after the fire, and I had insurance people coming over, and I had just like so much crap. And there was no electricity in the house, so we had to run extension cord from the neighbor's house.
That's wild. Well, yeah. Even her vocals in there, it was like super chaotic, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is so. Because I said, they're got to be trying to recreate and it was perfect, man. It was like the whole thing was just spot on. Where did you develop your playing style? Where you I hate to use the word shred because it's not associated with like melodic stuff, but where you shred blues kind of. I mean, I've never heard any blues player really do stuff like that.
Well, with that band, none of us really wanted to be anything traditional blues, and we took an approach that. We jokingly called it, it's like post hip hop blues or something,
Yeah.
And so we wanted it to be modern, but we also wanted it to be like we were from a trailer park in Arkansas.
That's exactly how it came out, man.
Yeah. And so a lot of influences are coming through. I mean, blues is definitely my closest friend in the music world. But that doesn't mean that I don't listen to Ornette Coleman and Stravinsky and, all kinds of shit,
Yeah.
And I guess it all comes through,
It was really a treat listening to you play, man. And I would really look forward to hearing you again with something else new.
Thanks.
Sorry, I'm just going through my questions here. Something we already asked. I don't want to ask you something. Anything you're looking forward to doing more of over the next, assuming the coronavirus ends and everybody music business
do gigs again someday.
Yeah, right. Anything on the horizon for you, like any plans you have or thoughts about what's going to go on or goals or something like that?
Well, continuing to work in the recording world with other people is always fun, and I'm intimidated and excited about continuing to explore my own songwriting and singing, and fronting a band. It's so new to me at a kind of a late in the game kind of stage, but It feels really good, and it feels really good to try to invent it. Luella and the Sun was a great channel for invention. It was very easy for me to visualize what should be coming out of her mouth and what should be coming out of the band's energy, and it was really fun for me it was like a step away from just producing, like now we have this whole band and visualizing what is the art we want to make and what should it sound like. And then we need songs. So I started writing songs for it,
You wrote all those tracks.
The original music. Yeah. I mean, everybody contributed arrangement wise and stuff, but yeah.
Well, man, I'll tell you, for whatever it's worth, I really would look forward to more stuff from you. To me, you're an artist, man. And it was just great. It was really a joy. And you don't listen to, I listen to loads of stuff. Fortunately, from doing this show, I've gotten turned on to loads of cool music, but it was great. It was unlike anything in a very good way, man. Really, and I knew that you had to be a deep cat to make that music too, because the soul. And I want to talk about what you're playing and stuff later, but music wise, but it was just the tone. Everything was just perfect, man. You connected. I would imagine you connected with loads of people musically through that, man. It was just spot on. So
well, thanks, Craig.
Yeah, man. Just love to hear anything new you do. Any low points or dark periods you've had to deal with, and how'd you get through them? Besides your studio burning down.
Studio burning down and the band breaking up at the same time was pretty difficult. It was definitely a what the fuck am I doing time period, And then I got right back to work and started working on records, 10 and 11 hours a day. And it left me feeling, I was grateful to have work, and I was working with cool people doing cool music, but it left me feeling like the taste that I had gotten from the band, it was like, I want that again,
Dude.
But you're working so much, you don't have time to really do that, to put that together and come up with something again,
Yeah. Maybe, dude, you got time now.
Exactly. Yeah.
You got nothing but time, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Yeah, man, I hear you on that. Tell me, any one or two things that you've done that you were intimidated by, but hindsight being 2020, you're glad you did them, and they were like big steps in the right direction for you.
Oh God, man. Well, there's tons of those. One of them is being the multi-instrumental guy with Ann Womack, who's like incredible, and her whole band is amazing musicians, and then I started out on guitar with her, but then whatever. I ended up being the utility guy at playing pedal steel and acoustic guitar and mandolin,
How'd you learn all these instruments?
Well, working in the studio, sometimes it's like, I'm not the best mandolin player, but I can go grab one right now and come up with a part. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
I can sit on the couch and learn chords, and the next thing you know, a few years later, you got a few chords, and you can kind of do it. And so I can kind of get around on a bunch of different instruments,
right?
But I can play guitar. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, you sure can, man.
And playing with Leanne, the whole band was just such high level musicianship. It was very intimidating to be there, and especially playing instruments that are not necessarily my first instrument. But it kicked my ass, and it raised me to another level. I mean, going to Berkeley, when I was 19 or whatever, that kicked my ass, and being around musicians from all over the world with all kinds of different influences that I'd never been around, that kicked my ass. There's tons of examples of that.
That's cool, man. After a
while, you kind of start to like getting your ass kicked. It's like
it's the only way you move up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Was so you were touring with her, or recording, or both?
Toured. Yeah.
Whose parts were on? Was it Jeff King who played the originals?
Well, she's been doing it for a good while.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of records with a lot of different people playing. Yeah. And I will say that she's pretty cool about, if there's a signature lick, you got to do it.
Right.
Solos, just play.
That's awesome. Because I've interviewed maybe 40 players that tour with big Nashville artists, and a lot of them are not you know, they're not mean about it, but they're just like, hey man, this is the record, play it.
That's right. Yeah.
That's cool.
No, Leanne, she's a real musician herself. You know, she gets it. You know,
that's awesome, man.
She wants the feeling on stage, you know, which means be in the moment. You know?
Yeah, man. That's awesome. Yeah. Any advice you'd give to your younger self, assuming you would listen, about anything personal that would business make your life easier?
Well, I wish I had more of an understanding of ego when I was younger, and I don't know how I would quickly give someone advice on that, you know, but you know, I sort of believe that if you have high ego, that means you also have low ego, and if you have low ego, you will have high ego when you can get it. And as I've gotten older, you know, I've kind of gotten a little more equanimity about that, and I can appreciate other musicians that aren't necessarily my thing better now, and I can have more appreciation for a lot of different types of people.
Cool.
Because I feel like I'm in a more equal level kind of area, and I feel like that goes into the music, you know.
Yeah.
And if the ego is getting into the music, then sometimes that can be good, but for me, that's not my calling, you know. And I wish I'd written more when I was young.
Well, dude, sometimes, you know what, man? I bet you couldn't have come up with stuff as good as when you were younger as you're coming up with now.
Yeah, I guess you know, who knows? Yeah.
I mean, who knows?
But I think that was also ego too. You know, it's like, I can't write. I can't really, you know, feeling like on a subconscious level, feeling like what you have to say is not necessarily as valid as what people that are close by that can do it. You know?
Right. I gotcha. Well, man, like I said, everything you're doing now is keep writing, please.
Thanks.
Yeah, seriously. Okay. Let's talk about gear for a few minutes.
Yeah.
First of all, man, what is that guitar that you're playing in? Like, it's an old something. I don't even know what it is. What is that?
It's an old Teisco. I can't remember it's so embarrassing that I can't remember the model number. It's like a PN4 or something. But it's a 26-inch scale. So it's a longer scale length than a Gibson or a Fender. And so it seemed very natural to turn it into some sort of baritone type guitar. So that guitar was tuned C to C, but standard tuning. So it's down a major third from standard guitar tuning.
Wow. So did you have to change your playing, or did you capo?
Well,
how did you do that?
You kind of have to change your playing, but you just kind of, when you pick that thing up, it's just instant. There's an instant style that's already happening. When you try to bend a string, it's not going to sound like a Les Paul. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to have a different, the way the pitch goes up is going to be at a different rate, and your vibrato is going to sound different, you know, because of the baritone and because of just the way that guitar is set up, you know. And I just love that, you know, and I love when gear can be the muse, you know, and you can use a piece of gear to suddenly go, wow, this is fun, you know, and end up somewhere you wouldn't have been, you know.
That guitar sounds great, man. So tell me, how are you getting that fuzzy tone? Because it's like perfect fuzz, man.
I don't know if any of the recordings have any pedals on. I played through, on the recordings, I used a little Tweed Deluxe.
Okay.
And I think just kind of straight in. And now sometimes, like on the video where we're in the wreckage of the fire, I'm going straight into an Echoplex and then into a Magnatone, 60s Magnatone with 115.
Okay.
And you just turn the Magnatone all the way up, you know. And I would use that Magnatone live, or I would use this other Magnatone that's a really bizarre. They only made them like 1 year in 1955. 40 watt amp. It's called a Maestro.
That's 65 years old.
Yeah.
Holy smoke! Where'd you find it?
I think there's a picture of Eddie Cochran playing through one.
What's it called? A Magnetone Maestro?
Yeah, there's no vibrato. It's before they started doing vibrato.
Where did you
But
find that?
it's a beast. It's that amp, especially with that guitar, is like, it's a beast.
How many watts is that?
It's like 40. It's 2 6L6s. Yeah.
Where did you find that?
I found that there's a guy in St. Louis called Mike Tepe. He's got a guitar store there, and when I go to St. Louis, I occasionally go over there. And one day I went in there and he was like, "Here's the amp you need." And he goes, "You need to plug this in." I plugged it in. It was like credit card, because I knew I would never see one again.
It sounds wonderful, man. I mean, it's just perfect distortion. I mean, perfect distortion, man.
Yeah.
Just like a real nice amount of breakup, but it's nice and warm. You know, it's like very British brown sounding, but even more saturated with warmth than that. Man.
And the guitar has those pickups, you know, those pickups are so microphonic. You can talk into them, you know. And I would just, it's got that volume control that's like a little wheel on there.
There's all sorts of stuff on there. It was pretty cool to look at.
And you know, I would just turn the wheel down when we get into the verse and she had to sing. I would just kind of turn it down a little bit. And then when it's time to solo, turn it up, you know.
That's awesome. What else? What's your is that your go-to guitar?
No, it's not. It was just kind of for that band, you know. I did use it last week on a recording, but in a very different way than what we used it in that band, in a more of a regular baritone kind of way.
What's your go-to? And what other two or three guitars? Yeah.
These days I'm back into playing my Strat a lot. I have a 1982 reissue of a 57 Strat. So it's one of the early reissues. And I play it. And also these days I've been playing through an old 60s Fender reverb unit into a Gibson GA30, which is a weird amp.
That's an old amp, right?
Yeah, it's like early 50s.
Man, I've had a lot of guys on the show tell me that those are some of their favorite. You know, they have names like the Gibson something. You know, the not lamppost, but you know.
Well, in the 60s, they got into using all the space age kind of names. You know, the Geminis and the whatever's. You know, like
yes,
yeah. The
Titan, that's a popular one, man. I've heard that one mentioned many times. But those old Gibsons, I've heard so much love for those, man. They're an arm and a leg to buy.
The 50s Gibsons are the prices are starting to go up on them, but still nothing like Fender Tweed 50s amps, you know.
Definitely. I'm going to look for those 50s, man. Okay, so you're playing 82 reissue of 57 Strat. What else? What's your top three? What do you play else behind that?
I've got this guitar right here that I play probably every day, and it's a 1952 ES 175.
Beautiful guitar, man.
It's beautiful, and it's in an incredible condition. And one of the beautiful things about it is that it came from a guy in Shreveport, Jimmy K. And so that kind of makes it dear to me in a way too, you know.
Do you have flat wounds on there?
Yeah.
What string gauge do you play them with? I never ask this question. People will be laughing because I'm always like, we don't talk about string gauge. But I'm asking because I have that Ibanez there, and I'm new to it, so I want to learn. Go ahead. So
I think I have 12s on there right now, and I think they're Tomastics.
Yeah, okay.
Are for flat wounds, they are significantly better than everybody. To me, better than anything.
They should be because they're like double the price.
They're like $30 or something for a set. But you put them on there and just leave them on there for years, you know.
So, like, I'm new. I bought that thing because I'm late to the game, but I got turned on to Kenny Burrell and Grant Green, from all the guys on the show. I'm not a big jazz fan, but how can you not love those tones?
No kidding, man. Midnight Blue, that record.
Just the tone. So I found that Ibanez really good price, and I bought it. But I'm struggling with those flats. They're like 11s. You said 12. I was hoping you're going to say like 9s or 10s. I don't think they make 9. But if I put round wounds on there, would I lose that tone?
It'll be a totally different tone. Yeah.
Yeah.
You might like it, you know, but now the biggest thing, what is it? Are you trying to bend strings on there, or
Yeah, and I know I kind of can't. And I have no problem sliding, but that's just not the player I am.
Well, try getting a plain .020, a 20 gauge for the G string. And when you put a plain G string on there, it suddenly changes the whole game of bending. Then you can bend strings.
A round wound or a flat wound?
It's plain, so
it's
it
just
has no
called
wrap.
Plain. Okay.
It has no wrap.
Do they sell those just like individually?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, and you may have to order them.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like I will occasionally go on Just Strings and order 10 of them and keep them around. Because I have guitars. This guitar is set up for jazz, so I really don't do much bending. If I do, it's half step, kind of small bends.
Sure.
But I have other guitars that I've set up more for kind of like, like Wayne Bennett, who played with Bobby Bland, Archtop electric blues kind of guys.
Right.
And in that case, then I like to have a 20 plain on the G string, because then I can kind of bend strings.
Man, thank you so much, because I just love the tone. I want to get a little more out of. Yeah, I don't want to. And I've learned a lot. The way I use that guitar now is, I don't know. You ever play baseball as a kid and you put a donut on the bat?
Right.
So it's like harder. So that's how that guitar is for me. It's like it's harder to play. So then when I pick up, my anything else, it's like, oh, it's not.
But you know what? It's a little bit like me playing that Teisco guitar. Like, I have to just kind of let go of a whole lot of other stuff that I would do on a Strat, because it's not going to work on that guitar. So I have to play to that guitar.
Yeah.
And when I pick up this 175, I'm not going to play Voodoo Child on it. That's it's not what that instrument.
Right.
That's how you dance with that one.
Yes.
And so you have to go to, and that's part of the beauty of that's part of the instrument being the muse.
Yeah.
Inspiring a different thing.
Well, I'm going to look for that plain G string. Thank you, man. That's a huge help, man. I really appreciate that.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And then I won't feel like I'm cheating.
Yeah.
Any cool stories about how you acquired any of your guitars?
Gosh, I'm sure there's lots of them. The Strat came from a guy named Russell Farrow, who worked for a company called Thoroughbred Music in Florida. Yeah,
it's right down here in Tampa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's where he was living at the time. And he had, that guy, I went to Thoroughbred Music in Tampa 20 years ago or something. And Russell walked out with what was supposedly the cleanest original Flying V and just handed it to me. And I started playing some dumb licks on it. I was like, wow, what's this? And he's like, and then I was like, I don't even want to hold it. It's like so valuable, But he's a trip. But he had that Strat, and he sold it to me for $500 or something. And
which is a lot of money back then.
Yeah, it still seemed like a decent deal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I've gotten a lot of mileage out of the guitar.
That's awesome, man. Anyone influence your playing that people might be surprised to hear?
Well, I don't know what surprises people, but my influences are all over the map, including a lot of non-guitar players, Bill Evans on piano or whatever, a friend of mine was doing a sound check at Lincoln Center in New York, and Wynton Marsalis walked in.
Yeah.
And they started talking, and my friend was in a band doing basically kind of Americana guitar kind of music, but Wynton ended up saying, man, what we do, it's all the same. It's all just music, and that's it's very true. The energy that you get from certain parts of The Rite of Spring by Stravinsky is heavy metal as hell, huge, terrifying,
That's a good point, man. It's what you
our
get
subconscious out of it. Is going to try to recreate those energies with whatever tools we have.
Yeah. Yeah, very much.
It might be a Les Paul and a Marshall, or it might be a violin, but we still want to try to replicate funny sounds. We still want to try to replicate terrifying sounds. We want to explore the same thing. So you can listen to other types of music and pull things from it and put it into what you're doing with your tools, you know?
Yeah, man, very much. There's a pretty good documentary I started watching about Bill Evans. I don't know if you saw it on Prime.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Tell me your top 3 Desert Island discs, man. Just for now.
I thought about that question, and I thought, I don't know how, because it changes every day.
Of course, it could change twice a day.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but I will say that some of the 3 of the most formative records for me as a teenager, when I was just getting into this and I was really passionate about it, and I was really exploring and trying to find things. Are You Experienced by Hendrix?
Mm-hmm.
Live at the Regal by B.B. King. And around that same time, I had a guitar teacher named Ron Roskowski in St. Louis, and he gave me a cassette that had some Miles Davis on it. There's a record called Four and More. And I didn't know what was going on that record. I couldn't tell if it was free jazz or not, but there was something about the mystery of it, you know, that kept me coming back. And so I don't know, you know, and BB was certainly like a father figure to me when I was a teenager, musical father figure. Jimmy was like a buddy, you know, like I would consult with Jimmy every day when I got home from school, you know, put on Electric Land or whatever, you know.
How cool is that cover, man, too? That was at that time, you know, the fold out with the women on there, that was pretty incredible, man.
No doubt. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you study jazz up at Berkeley?
Yeah. Yeah. Their whole thing, you know, how you learn about harmony and chords and all that stuff. It's all based in the jazz world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What made you go there? And that was probably like a bit of a culture shock.
It was, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
I needed it, you know, coming from Arkansas and Shreveport.
It's got to be tough. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was really great for me. And just sitting in the hallway on the floor with 3 or 4 other dudes talking about music, you know, like I just learned so much. You know?
Yeah. I would imagine moving around, you probably really easy, like from a musician band standpoint, you're probably super easy to get along with because you probably could adapt real quick.
I guess that's true. Yeah. I guess that's true.
Yeah. If you got to make new friends all the time, and you don't have 6 months to do that.
I never really connected it with that part of my childhood, but that's probably very accurate.
Yeah, I would imagine. I think that's a strength, actually. A strength that comes out of that, you know, is that you have that adaptability to, you know, judge or just, you know, fit in real quick. All right. Tell me what makes you happy, Joe V. McMahan.
You know, getting up in the morning and playing guitar for 2 hours, you know, when I have the luxury of doing that, that makes me happy, you know. Family makes me happy, you know. I don't know, seeing music that transcends my own concepts of what music is, you know.
Give me some examples of what you remember. Who do you remember seeing that did that?
You know, Bjork, Bill Frisell, you know. I don't know, you know. There's a lot of people, I guess.
There's a good documentary about him too. I don't know if you saw that one.
I haven't seen that one yet. I do need to see that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's nice. You know, he's such a laid back dude, man. If he was any more laid back, he'd be an ironing board. He's very, very mellow, very mellow. Like, talk about someone that could get along with any. It would be impossible to get angry or frustrated with that dude. He's so mellow.
I saw him in 1985 in Boston in a band called Bass Desires, and it was him and Schofield.
Oh wow!
And of course they were just kids, I guess, looking back on it, you know.
85, yeah.
And he seemed nervous, you know.
Man, who's not nervous playing with John Scofield?
Yeah.
He's a monster, man. All right, tough question, Joe. What do you like most about yourself?
I guess I pride myself on always being a seeker and a searcher, and my adaptability and willingness to change. I think it feels right to me. It feels like a big part of who I am and I'm supposed to be.
That's awesome, man. Very cool. Thank you. Something or someone you miss from your childhood?
I miss that. I miss walking out in a field by myself and just being out with nature. I don't know. There was a particular type of comfortable aloneness that I experienced when I was a kid. It's not like that now. You know, I can't get back to that.
Yeah.
You know,
you must have had, or let me ask you this, in being in the horse, when you're caring for horses, did you ever have you had to have situations where you bonded with certain animals?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were horses and there were dogs and, yeah.
Yeah. That had to be really cool. Animals are just so pure, the purest things in the world, I think, actually, man. You know, they have no agenda. They'll show you love all the time. You know, I love animals so much. I can see
me too. My dad was really great with animals, not so great with people. He wasn't a jerk or anything, but he wasn't very social. He wasn't a small talker kind of guy.
Yeah.
But he could really communicate with animals, and they would listen to him and he would listen to them.
Yeah.
And being around that was a big influence on who I am,
Yeah. Do you have pets?
I don't have any pets right now.
Yeah. I love animals, man. I couldn't.
When you have a recording studio that's in your house, it's never a good time to get a puppy.
Yeah, right. Yes, I understand that, man. Who's had the biggest influence on you musically and then personally?
Oh God, this question perplexes me. I can't narrow that down to one person. That would be doing an injustice to a dozen other people. You know what I mean?
You totally get it, man.
But there definitely have been David Egan, who I mentioned in the bio.
Yeah.
A big influence, professionally and non-professionally, just talking about music, getting me to listen to particular records,
There was a guy, the keyboard player, who got you to play with Jo-El.
Yeah. And then I got the Jo-El gig, and there was a bass player in the band named Ron Eoff, and he's a total dynamic character and incredible musician. And I'm still friends with him, and we still play and do music together.
That's awesome.
And he played with the band for 2 years, and he was friends with Jaco Pastorius, and he's got his own amazing story, and just the way that he views music has been a big influence. And there's a whole crew of dudes from that time period that are all 10 years, 15 years older than me. And I was very lucky to get to play with people older than me because they had already figured some shit out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a whole group of those guys that have been really positive.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Do you have any non-musical superpowers?
I don't know. Not really, I guess.
Any hobbies outside of music or interests?
I'm going to try to get my garden going again this year, with all this time off.
Call Audley Freed.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's the guy for that.
I see him at the Y all the time.
Yeah, man. Ask him, tell him, hey, man, I was telling Craig Garber, I'm not kidding. He's the guy, man. He said he's a little bit Hank Hill, he calls himself. He's the guy. That's so funny. That would be hilarious when you say that to him.
Yeah.
Tell me, anything you wish you did differently, or anything you regret not doing?
Well, it's hard to really invest in any kind of regret, you know.
I'm with you.
But I wish I'd written more. I wish I had visualized myself singing and writing and you know, in that way more. But at the same time, if I had done that, that would have been a totally different trajectory. And
yeah,
you know, I can't really, like I said, I can't really invest in that. I can't really.
I totally get it. For whatever it's worth, that's one of the most common responses. Not that I can't invest in that, is too, but I wish I would have started writing earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real common response. Yeah. Best advice you've ever been given, and who gave it to you?
There's a lot of that too. When I was a kid, I would buy every guitar player magazine and I would read them from cover to cover 5 times. Whether I even knew who the guy was, I would read the interview over and over, you know. But there was a Kenny Burrell interview, and in that interview, the interviewer asked him, what advice would you give to young musicians, young guitar players? And he said, well, if you want to do it, if you want to be a professional guitar player, don't do it. It's really hard and it'll kick your ass and it'll beat you up. If you have to do it and you'll love it.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know, and that, obviously I still think about it, you know,
because some days you may not want to do it.
Yeah.
I totally get it, man. It's a great quote. Thanks, man. And last question, Joe, what's been the biggest change in your personality over, say, the last 7 to 10 years? And how much of that has been intentional and how much is a natural part of aging?
I think I've definitely mellowed and I've kind of softened in my in the way I see other people. I'm more forgiving, you know. And I think I've had to be, because I've had to be more forgiving to myself, you know.
Totally
and when
get
you do that, then you're able to see that other people are also fighting their own battles, you know.
Yeah. It's funny when you do things, I use your word, when you soften in certain areas, it's really for me, it always benefits you. It always like relieves the stress. I mean, it benefits other people, but like you benefit in ways that I've benefited in ways I never expected.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, why wasn't I this laid back earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, man,
you can be laid back and still practice 5 hours a day.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, you know, working on your craft is not an ego motivated thing necessarily. Like, you know, music is a language. And if you speak the language every day, you get more fluent at it. That doesn't have to be driven by ego. That doesn't have to be, I want to kick your ass. I want to play faster than, you know what I mean? Like
totally.
You just get in, you're a fish and you get in the water and you swim every day, you know?
Totally get it, man. And
recognizing that doesn't have to be ego is a big deal. You know, it doesn't have to be ego. It's just love. It's just the way, where you feel comfortable. It's what you love and what you love to do. So you do that.
Right on.
And you don't do it for other people, you know?
Well, I'll tell you what, I hope you keep doing what you're doing, man. And I really look forward to something new coming out. Let me tell people where to find you and how to check you out. It's Joe V. McMahan. Is Joe spells his last name McMahan. And there's a lot of videos on YouTube, especially with Luella and the Sun. I would really encourage you to check that out. Check out the 2 singles at the band. Oh, you know what? How did those singles get in? You know, it's really cool. When you listen to those songs, you say, man, this should be in a movie. You know, so I could easily see both of them. How did they get placements?
I don't even remember how they happened. We had a manager at the time, and I'm sure she was involved in some capacities to do it. But, you know, the band had a buzz going. And when you get a buzz going like that, people start finding you, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, Fly So Free was on that show Parenthood. And it was in a scene where these teenagers are making out, which is hilarious.
That was a popular show, so I'd imagine you picked up a ton of traction from that. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a few other things. That MTV show called Catfish used something, and I can't remember. There's 4 or 5 different uses.
That's awesome, man. Well, it's great stuff. And you know, the interesting, you just said it's blues, but it's independent. I mean, it's unlike anything, man. You know, you guys did not a lot, but you did some punk or influenced songs on YouTube. Yeah. It was just great, man. Really cool. So check out Joe V. McMahan and go to his website. It's joevmcmahan.com. Again, it's McMahan. I'm pronouncing your last name right, I hope?
McMahan. Yep.
Okay, cool. And on his website, a couple of things. First of all, if you are interested in working with Joe as either a guitarist doing tracks or as a producer or engineer, and I do not say this often, but if you're an indie band, I say indie because he's like, he's got a very free spirit, but man, this would be a great guy to work with as a producer. He's so talented, man. I would really encourage you to look at some of the stuff he's done or engineer. Go to Joe's website, again, joevmcmahan.com, and go to the contact tab and just reach out to him. Be specific in, you know, what you're looking for and why you want to connect and how you think you can help him. Listen to some of his music. If you're a guitar player in the blues genre or any genre at all, Joe does give lessons when he's available, not doing sessions and not in the studio. Again, same thing. Go to his website and enter your information on the contact form. Give him some info there. And he's also on social media on Instagram and Facebook. And just check out his music. He's great. You play around town too, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Not right now. Everything's closed.
Oh, do you post those gigs on your social media?
I usually post them on Instagram or Facebook. Yeah.
Great. So if you're in the Nashville area, once everything comes back to life, check Joe out. You will love it. He's a really talented guy. Anything else that I forgot to mention or that you want to talk about?
That was great, Craig. Thank you.
No, man. Thank you very much. I really dig your music, man. Your vibe and your work ethic is great, and I hope to hear a lot more of it. So, and come back on the show, and we'll promote it again. I'd love to hear it, man. And thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Please check out Joe McMahan, joevmcmahan.com. Listen to his music, man. The guy's got a great vibe, and he's a hell of a player, extremely talented. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play a guitar, and have fun. Until next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. Thanks for everything, Joe. Take care, brother.
Yeah, man.